What I was wanting to say there is that at the last election where George W. was prospective, many Americans said that they would flee to Canada, and of course, none did. And I'm wondering whether they mean it this time, really mean it this time. Okay, we've had that little tour d'horizon of American and international politics. Now we come to the great summation in the person of Terry Mosher. Yay! Oh, he's got the hat.
How are you? Hang around up here for a minute.
Okay.
I borrowed Matthew Fraser's hat. He told me the last one he dropped down a latrine in Afghanistan, and he's going to donate it to the War Museum in Ottawa. So that's good. I want to thank you. I've been attending a lot of these things, I think a dozen, 11, something like that. And the thing is, Moses is from Montreal, and every one of these, he features Montreal talent. He still recognizes the fact that Montreal is a creative, entertaining city, one of the best in the world. We have terrific people there. I mean, we've got the largest jazz festival in the world. We've got the largest comedy festival. It's the birthplace of Cirque du Soleil. And what does he do? You're bringing on Nikki Yanofsky right after. The Yid Life Crisis was just phenomenal yesterday, Montreal talent. And to open the show, right? The kid, right? Yeah. Wonderful stuff. Daniel Clark Bouchard. And I saw this kid play the piano. We got that up close. And you know what I immediately thought of? Another Montreal piano player, Oscar Peterson. Oscar. Yep. With 8 fingers on each hand. Other thing too, your arm's slowing down a little bit, right? You throwing? Because I've seen you throw up into the balcony. Did you play baseball when you were a kid? You
softball, yeah.
You played softball?
Windmill.
Well, as you know, I've been cartooning so long, I saw the birth, the life, and the death of the Montreal Expos. I mean, I love drawing the Expos. I do, you know, all of them and so on. And it occurred to me, I didn't know the theme was 17. I wish I'd known. Because if I had known that, the best arm I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of baseball, was a guy by the name of Ellis Valentine who played right field, right, for the Montreal Expos. And in his prime, I mean, he could throw. And I thought, so he's a friend. I contacted, said, Ellis, send Moses a note. So.
Ah, how cool. How cool. Thank you.
But Moses,
that's nice.
When he played for the Expos, he was number 17. Ah. Hey.
Woo, 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 woo.
Okay. Moses and I have a lot in common. We're the same age. He, as a young man, he went from Montreal to Toronto to find fame and fortune. I went from Toronto to Montreal to cartoon the famous and the fortunate. He's married to a wonderful artist by the name of Marilyn. She's here. I'm married to a wonderful artist by the name of Mary. She's here. This is one of Mary's paintings of a horse hanging on our living room wall. I won't let her sell it. It's a beautiful thing. But she's been wandering around Idea City here, doing sort of little New Yorker Barry Blitt kind of sketches. Right? Nice, fun little thing, spontaneous, right on the spot. Another one here of performers, great little things. A couple of people doing, but I can't help myself. When I see Mary's little sketches, I want to cartoon them up, right? So like here. I just met the most creative person at Idea City. Really, who was that? Moses Neimer's accountant. I started out as a political cartoonist, but I'm not really that anymore. I'm a social cartoonist because whatever's out there, whatever's in front, that's what I like to draw cartoons on, whatever it happens to be. Hockey, you know? Both teams sucked this year. Technology, traffic, particularly in Montreal, and the solutions they come up with for the traffic in Montreal. Weather, February. Any Americans here? Hold up your hands. Come on. Never come to Canada in February. There's great stuff we don't even have a name for that gets on your pants and on cars and stuff. It's just a terrible place to come. Nevertheless, some of us who have a few bucks can afford to get on a plane, and go south for a few, get away from this deplorable winter. That's my most famous unpublished cartoon. People always want prints of that, particularly in the dead of winter. But I thought, fuck February would be a great motto for Canada. And so when I met this woman and she gave me this little pin, I suggested it to her. She thought it was a hilarious idea. That would be a great motto, right? But I never heard back from her. It's led to a couple of things, though. Bill Clinton in February of 2002 was coming to Montreal to give a speech, and he was going to raise some money. And the organizers called me tentatively and said, look, would you consider doing a cartoon of Bill Clinton? It's an unusual gift. You could give it to him, and Terry, do you think it could be a little nice for a change? Well, I thought, okay, so we'll do that. This is kind of how it starts. But why Montreal in February, Mr. President? Why not July? He could come in July, play his saxophone, appear on one of our wonderful jazz festival posters, right? He loved the cartoon. Here I am giving it to him on stage at Place des Arts. He has it hanging in his office. The organizers liked it. They had him sign copies. The Gazette loved it. They put it on the front page. Terrific, big hit. I didn't love the cartoon. This is the cartoon I really wanted to give him. The thing is, knowing Bill Clinton, he would have liked that one too. So I like drawing American stuff. American presidents, they make it easy, don't they? That guy, keep it stupid simple. A little more sympathy for that fellow. Thanksgiving, Republicans. More recently, a little more somber. Guns. I'm always doing I just can't figure out the gun thing. This is perhaps my favorite. The next one. This would be the perfect gun. That would work, wouldn't it? 2016's been a wonderful year, perhaps for all the wrong reasons. But he does sum up that anger that exists now in the United States. The thing is, if I draw international cartoons, and it's usually on an off day when nothing's happening in Canada, but if I do international stuff, I like it when it has a Canadian hook. For example, in 1980, when the Canadian embassy staff hid the Americans away, didn't know how to handle that, so finally I came up with a solution. It was a beaver pissing on the Ayatollah's leg. Again, after September the 11th, when we went shoulder to shoulder with the Americans against terrorism in Afghanistan. You gotta like that goose, huh? These two. A comparative study here, Sarah Palin and Elizabeth May. And most recently, the love affair between these two guys. And when they had that state dinner, I just imagined, poor Stephen Harper that night for dinner, going to McDonald's, picking up. So how did Justin Trudeau ride his dad's little Mercedes into Ottawa? How did he do that? Well, it was a fascinating election, and one we're really going to remember. And what I'm going to show you are stories. I put cartoons, and there's stories, and I've been so fortunate over 49 years of drawing cartoons to deal with so many stories. But anyway, Lucas, can we get this to work? Hi there, I'm Aislin, the cartoonist. Here is another one of those animated shorts on how I feel that the federal election has progressed so far.
Blah 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 blah.
Photobomb!
That's what he did. He photobombed the hell out of everybody else. I mean, it was real simple. We woke up on October the 20th, and this guy was toast. He was gone. What did he do? I mean, there were some idiotic moves. He called an election in the summer, right? I mean, we really want to know about it in the summer. We really want to see a debate in August, don't we? I think he thought he could buy his way through. And I think he thought that a lot of people were, that they were soft, that he could do it. If not, he could scare the hell out of people with a niqab thing. Or hang around with influential friends like this. It was pretty clear at that point we wanted change. Most of us wanted change. But was it going to be this guy? Now, remember, you got to remember that Tom Mulcair was one of the most effective leaders of the opposition we've ever had in the history of Canada. He was really very good. But in the election, I mean, even in Quebec, we thought that orange was the new bloc, you know, that it was a big... But no, he blew it. He blew it. He was just too arrogant, too confident. And then what happened... He did it. And what did he continue doing? The same thing he'd done on the election. He just, did selfies all around the world. And looked for a lot more of it. This year, the Canadian Prime Minister takes a selfie with a group of Syrian refugees who have fled from a terrible war. Next year, the Canadian Prime Minister takes a selfie with a group of American refugees who have fled from the terrible Donald Trump. Okay. He got himself in a little trouble recently, But elbowing, it's a great Canadian tradition. What are you talking about? Okay, this is for Moses again. So one of the great things that's coming up is the legalization of pot. The problem is, most people my generation, with the exception of Moses, have forgotten how to roll joints. Okay, here I am with, back. There we go. That's me with about 30, 35 of my books. I've actually produced 49 books. My 50th book is coming up next year. I'd like to tell you a little bit about it. From Trudeau to Trudeau, this is a wraparound book cover with all kinds of book covers and wonderful events that I've had the privilege of drawing cartoons on from 50 years of Aislin cartoons. The introduction is going to be written by Bob Ray, despite this cartoon I drew of him years ago when he went skinny dipping with Rick Mercer, if you remember. There will be a museum, it's a big deal, a museum show in Montreal, McCord Museum there is going to have an exhibition, the best of 50 years. It's going to move to Ottawa at that point, and then we'll move it to Toronto. I haven't found a venue yet in Toronto for an exhibition, but I have friends in high places, and I'm quite sure we'll work it out somehow. Think about it, 50 years of cartooning, 2017, next year. When I was first started cartooning, Canada was celebrating its 100th birthday. Within a few months of me starting cartooning, the Parti Québécois was formed in Quebec. A few months after that, Pierre Trudeau became Prime Minister of Canada. I mean, think of it. And then a year or two after that, Pierre Trudeau fought his way through the October crisis. already. I mean, I'm not even 30 yet, and I've had these. Then my newspaper sent me to Russia for the Canada Hockey Russia series. Then Jean Drapeau, mayor of Montreal, said that the Olympics would no more have a deficit than a man would have a baby. Well, they certainly did. The Olympics themselves were terrific, and I had fun wandering around with a sketchbook and drawing all kinds of things at the Olympics. It was a great opportunity. I have many stories about that. So in the book, we'll be telling stories that sort of wrap themselves around these different cartoons. I'll start. Then the election of the Parti Québécois, and this is the most famous cartoon I've ever drawn, with René Lévesque saying, "Okay, everybody take a Valium." And a lot of us did. A lot of us took a Valium and we stayed, and it's still a pretty damn good place. Right after that, there was the first referendum. Trudeau stepped in, and Lévesque lost the referendum. Along came Brian Mulroney. He loved to show off his chin. You know, I like what the cartoonists do to my chin, he said. Well, he didn't say anything after I drew this one. Free trade, Meech Lake, a whole bunch of things. There's sort of constant sort of back and forth in Quebec that provided me with very good living, like between, say, a Jacques Parizeau and a Robert Bourassa. And then Lucien Bouchard coming to the forefront, a very, very popular man in Quebec with the referendum. In fact, he came within, 50,000 votes of Quebec separating it, of us being sort of boiled in the pot as lobsters. Now, I belong to the English community, and we're always sort of getting blamed for this, that, or the other, and there have been great sort of dust-ups. And my favorite person ever to draw, and I could give a whole presentation on her alone, was our language mistress, Louise Baudouin, who I always drew as a dominatrix. But the English have settled down. They've learned to settle down. What they've done is they only speak 1/3 as loud as the Francophones do, and everything seems to work out just fine. It's led to some good cartoons, that the language business, because it creates a whole unique situation in Montreal that Montrealers get. For example, 3 Americans are visiting the jazz festival. One looks up at a wall and he says, "What's that sign say?" "A lover with a phone number." What a terrific city. So more recently, there's been the Orange Wave, which was really quite dramatic when you think about it. I mean, Jack Layton coming into Quebec and just swooping everybody. And I guess the most delicious moment for me of the last 10 to 15 years had to be when Miley Cyrus came out with that video, swinging on a wrecking ball. I couldn't believe it. Mary and I are watching the news on a Sunday night, and Wendy Mesley announces this video. And I look at it, and I say, I don't believe this. I just add, some love handles to this woman, and you've got Pauline Marois. Well, that worked out. On the cover of a book with a wonderful introduction by Chantal Hébert. And it continues. We've got this dynamic new mayor in Montreal. I've been looking for a hook. And sometimes it takes a year or two to find the hook or what you're going to do, like Louise Baudouin as a dominatrix. I think I've got one for the new mayor, who's quite a guy, but anyway, I think it's going to be Denny Coderre from now on as Fred Flintstone. Great stuff. 2 I've had recently was the run at the Senate, when Mike Duffy claimed that he too, like Anne of Green Gables, was from Prince Edward Island. Hamilton's here. There you are. So it continues. Anyway, Stephen Harper was actually quite the royalist. He loved that stuff. He really loved that stuff. And I guess we've all come around. The royal family went through a really tough time. But the Queen has sort of brought it back somehow. And here she is. Granted, I'm no Lady Gaga, but she'll do. So I hope she makes it for our 150th anniversary next year. It'll be nice, you know. Then I can rerun this cartoon. But one of my, I'm going to close with one of my favorite stories here. In 2008, the Obamas were brand new to politics, international politics. Michelle Obama didn't know a lot about international protocol at that point, and one of their first state visits was to Buckingham Palace. So there they are, lining up for the photo op. But then, didn't Michelle Obama make the mistake of touching the Queen? I mean, you know, everybody knows you just don't do that. But the Queen, being gracious, what did she do? She just touched her right back. Well, when I saw that, I said, my God, what an opportunity. So I'm closing with this cartoon, my own fond salute to the LGBT community. Thank you very much.
Get the book.
Good, thank you. Good. Thank you.
And
Should I get the baseball hat?
you want the hat?